What's up, hoop heads? This is Tendai coming live and direct at you after hours on Monday, June 2nd here in the city of trees of Sacramento. Welcome to another episode of Shot Clock Scribbles. Last time I spoke with you guys, it was 2-1 in both conferences, East and West. A lot has happened since then. Matter of fact, both series are both done, and we're looking ahead now to the NBA Finals with the Pacers at OKC Thunder. But before we go ahead and do that, in today's show, we'll break down what will happen since I last chatted with you guys. So buckle up. I got a lot of content for you guys, so let's keep it pushing. Welcome to another episode of Shot Clock Scribbles. Let's go. The Indiana Pacers are headed to the NBA Finals after closing out the Knicks on Saturday night. This series showcased Indiana's electrifying offense and the resilience of the New York squad that ultimately ran out of gas at the very end. I got a couple of storylines for you guys. Up first here, Halliburton, Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, the guy that played right here in Sacramento, the Kings organization, I'm sure is kicking themselves in the butt right now because he lit up the Knicks bad. And some say that he should have even won the Eastern Conference MVP. But the Pacers guard, Tyrese Halliburton, has been putting on a clinic. Matter of fact, a playmaking masterclass. In the pivotal Game 5 at MSG, Halliburton dished 15 assists. In the pivotal Game number 5 in Indy, Halliburton dished out 15 assists with 0 turnovers and carving out the Knicks defense on his own without making a single mistake. Performances like this have become his calling card. Overrated? I don't know about that. He's already had 8 games with 20-plus points, 15-plus assists, and 0 turnovers in his young career, the most of any player ever per stat muse. All right, guys over there. Halliburton even notched a 32-point triple-double with 15 assists and no turnover, becoming the first player since at least 1978 to have a 30-point, 15 assist, 0 turnover game in the playoffs. Simply put, Halliburton has been the engine that's driving Indy right now, and he can dominate a game without scoring big time, and he's done that a couple of times, up in 30 points twice in this series. And his decision making and court vision were on display as he picked apart the Knicks defense time and time again. Of course, he had a terrible game number 5, actually, where he didn't play so good. I think he had about a couple points in the single digits, but he closed out the Knicks the other night. The other point that I wanted to make is Indiana's offense, man. It's nothing that we've ever seen, right? I mean, it gives me shades of the Phoenix Suns when they had Amari Stoudemire and Sean Marion and all those guys, Steve Nash. The Pacers' offense under Rick Carlisle is a beautiful blend between pace and constant movement. Off-ball cuts, quick kickouts, and extra passes. The Pacers run out their opponents with a lot of unselfish play. Last pod, we talked about Pascal Siakam not really even needing to run plays for him. He's been absolutely great for them. In fact, Indiana has been averaging nearly 29.3 assists per game over the last 2 postseasons, the most of any team since the Showtime Lakers in the 80s per CBA Sports. Thanks for that one. They've logged 16 playoff games with 30-plus assists in that span. No other team has more than 5. That is absolutely nuts. This team shares the ball exceptionally well, and they rarely turn it over, which is quite impressive. And they even had 7 postseason games with 30-plus assists and less than turnovers, an unprecedented combination. It's no surprise that their offense rating has been a historic 119.6. But we talked about that last time across these 2 playoff runs, the highest of any team since the NBA and ABA merger. In this series, you could see that flow. Indiana's offense would hum with crisp passing, player movement, and deadly shooting. They're shooting 40% from 3 as a team this postseason per ESPN. The Pacers dropped 130 points in Game 4, 125 in Game 6, hitting the 120-plus mark that the Knicks just couldn't match at the end of the day. The next point here on the East is Knicks ran out of gas. For the Knicks, the wheels started to fall off as the series wore on. They battled pretty damn hard, as with a team with Tim Thibodeau always do. But by Game 6, their offense has sputtered. But by Game number 6, their offense was sputtered. A big factor was fatigue and injuries. Point guard Jalen Brunson, JB, Star point guard Jalen Brunson was reportedly playing through a nagging injury, and key role guys like Josh Hart were exhausted from heavy minutes. Coach Tim Thibodeau leans on his main guys pretty heavy, and by the end of the long playoff run, you can tell that the Knicks' legs were not there at all. Contrast that to a high-powered offense like the Pacers, it just wasn't going to be sustainable. I have a quote here. Quote, one factor could be that Jalen Brunson is enduring an injury, and another might be that Josh Hart is tired from all the minutes. Close quote. A New York outlet noted after a blowout loss. The Knicks' shooting went cold late in the series, and their offense became stagnant. They simply couldn't keep up with Indiana's pace and the ball movement. New York Stars had their moments. Brunson poured in 32 points on 12 of 8. Brunson poured in 32 points on 12 of 18 shooting in Knicks Game 5 win, practically willing his team to a victory to stave off elimination. But even Brunson's heroics and a strong playoff run from midseason, even with Brunson's heroics and the acquisition of Karl Anthony Towns, who averaged 24 points in this series, actually, just were not enough. The team as an effort, the cumulative effect of Indiana's speed and constant pressure wore the Knicks down. And by the fourth quarter of game number 6, you could just tell the Knicks offense looked flat-footed and a step too slow, especially after halftime. They closed out that half pretty bad in game number 6, and I heard Tim Thibodeau talk about that too. And Indiana outpaced them and outlasted them. It's just plain and simple. And in the end, the Pacers' depth and fresher legs prevailed. Indiana's young players and shooters like Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Naismith continued to hit shots, whereas New York's depth was depleted. The Knicks had a fantastic run. They really did. But the combination of injuries, fatigue, and Indiana's relentless offense really caught up to them in the very end. And it's a credit to New York that it made it this far. This is a valuable experience for their core. They took down a Boston Celtics team, which were riddled with injuries themselves with KP and JT. But the Pacers were the more energetic team when it mattered the most. The result here, Indiana wins the series 4-2, clinching on their home floor in game number 6 behind a Halliburton double-double with 21 points and 13 assists and a team total effort. The Pacers advanced to their first NBA Finals since 2000, while the Knicks head into the offseason pondering how to get over the final hump. So those are my closing remarks about this series. I had the Pacers moving on to the finals, and it looks like I was right at the end of the day. Let's move on now to the West. The Oklahoma City Thunder defeated the Minnesota Timberwolves in just 5 games to punch the ticket to the NBA Finals. We covered the early part of the series in the last episode. Let's focus now on what happened after Game 3, essentially how OKC closes out and how Minnesota fell apart down the stretch. First things first, the Thunder finished strong. After 3 games, the Thunder held a 2-1 series lead, and the Wolves had taken Game 3, and they played very good, and Ant-Man Reese showed up for that game number 3. And those guys came out to play, beating the OKC Thunder by 42 points. And that made things interesting, but you needed these guys to do that again and again, and they just didn't do that. Oklahoma City Thunder, they responded with championship level poise in games 4 and 5 to slam the door on the Wolves and Finchie. Game 4 was a nail biter in Minneapolis, ending with some intentional foul strategy by OKC to prevent a game tying 3, a tactic that a lot of NBA fans were buzzing on Twitter a lot. And in that game 4, OKC Thunder's wingman, J-Dub, stepped up big time. I was watching that. I was washing my car, actually, but he dropped 34 points, shooting 13 of 24 from the field and 6 of 9 from deep, helping the Thunder seize a 3-1 lead. He was definitely an essential part of that dub, no pun intended. And Chet Holmgren, too. He held his own in that game as well. Once they had the Wolves on the ropes, the Thunder went for the knockout punch. Game 5 in OKC ended out in a 124-94 blowout. The Thunder came out aggressive, built an early lead, and never let Minnesota believe that they had a chance. It was a statement win, honestly, to end the series, showcasing OKC's depth and maturity despite their youth. I think they really did a good job of last year getting pretty far in the Western Conference, but still not getting to their goal where they wanted to go. And last series, 7 games against a championship level team in the Denver Nuggets. I think that series last year, I just think that what they went through last year really helped them propel to where they are now. Obviously, too, players like iHeart or Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso, they helped that. I think those 2 players really helped them get over this hump. Let's go over the next point. Ant-Man. So for Minnesota, the story of the 2 final games was a dwindling impact of Anthony Edwards. We talked about it last pod as well. The 23-year-old Edwards had been phenomenal in earlier rounds against the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors. And even early in this series, he got injured. So I don't know if that had something to do with him not playing great, but he did have a good game number three. He had back to back 3-point games at one point, carrying the Wolves offense. But as the series wore on, OKC's defense zeroed in on him and his production tailed off. This is smart coaching from the OKC Thunder because they know the Wolves aren't going to get anywhere without Ant-Man. They need Ant-Man to be Ant-Man every single game. And you need other people to fill that void. That's what they did. In game number 5, in the elimination loss for them, Edwards was just held to 19 points on 7 of 18 shooting, 1 of 7 from 3. We saw him be lights out during the regular season, leading the whole pack in 3-point makes. And he looked a bit gassed. And we talked about that last time. He started forcing shots, and you credit that to the Thunder's defense. They threw a combination of lanky defenders at Edwards. I have a quote here. They threw a combination of lanky defenders at Ant and, quote, were swarming him every time he had the ball, sending a double team, close quote, to make it difficult for him, per CBS Sports. The result was that the Wolves' young star couldn't maintain his earlier scoring burst, and it's a learning experience for Edwards, and he's a stud. And a lot of talk about him being the face of the league and Kendrick Perkins apologizing that he's not a family man and all that. Making the All NBA team and all is finding out how tough it really is when a good defense keys up on you, especially deep in the playoffs, right? Same team, time and time again. X's and O's, not just playing different teams all the time. You play the same damn team, and they know you pretty well. They know your tendencies. They know what you like to do. They know what you don't like, so they exploit that. His shot selection and stamina seemed to really drop off in game 4 and 5, and Minnesota's offense just went downhill. And when Ant's jumpers stopped falling, the Wolves didn't really have a reliable plan B to generate points. So last point is OKC's edge and poise. So ultimately, the Thunder were the superior team, and we all know it, and they showed it in crunch time. SGA looked every bit the newly crowned MVP that he is. Whenever the Wolves made a push, SGA would calmly respond with a tough drive, a mid-range bucket, or trips to the free throw line. At one point in the series, SGA had a postseason high 14 free throw attempts in a game per CBS Sports, showing how adept he is at drawing contact and getting easy points. He had plenty of help too. Aside from J Dub's breakout, there were other players that really stepped up, especially Chet Holmgren. He really helped that team. And other players on the team just making shots, and Lou Dort being a pest on defense. OKC's role players hitting timely shots. I mean, they got crazy depth. And to imagine that one of the first round picks was actually out for this whole year, and they still got a couple picks left at the disposal. I mean, things are very dangerous for this specific team and for the entire West. The young Thunder had a depth and balance that Minnesota's what the young Thunder have a depth and balance that Minnesota's 1-2 punch of Edwards and Julius Randle couldn't match in that. The Timberwolves often struggled with turnovers as well. They coughed it up 19 times in game 1, not a recipe for success, for example. And the trend persisted late in the series as well, where OKC took care of the ball and executed. This allowed the Thunder to control the tempo in the final games. All in all, y'all, OKC Thunder closed out the series 4-1, making their first NBA Finals appearance since the Durant-Westbrook era. That was what, 2012? For Minnesota, it's a second straight year failing in the Western Conference Finals, a tough pill to swallow after going out to the Dallas Mavericks last year. Also, a sign that they're close. They're right there. They're knocking on the door. I actually heard Chris Finch and his closing remarks on the season and had a lot of good points, which I would be happy to share at another time, or you can just go on YouTube and look at it yourself. Doesn't matter to me. So the Wolves, man, the Thunder. So as it goes for the Timberwolves, they have to figure out how to avoid burning out late in the series. For now, for OKC, meanwhile, it's onward to the championship round with a ton of momentum and plenty of rest as well. Those guys have been kicking back, getting some rest. Not that they probably needed any of it, but they're definitely getting that and getting the treatments on the clock, which is great for them. NBA Finals preview. Here we go. And then there were two. The stage is set for a unlikely but thrilling NBA Finals matchup between the OKC Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. out in the central region of the United States beginning on Thursday night. This is a clash of two of the league's brightest young teams, and if you're a basketball nerd like us, there's so much to dissect here. So let's break down the finals by the key matchups, stylistic contrast, and what to watch out for in the series. Let's get it. Up first, SGA versus Tyrese, battle of the point guards. We get an epic duel of lead guards here. SGA and Reese were both all NBA guards this year. They could not be more different in their style of play. SGA is a scoring machine, the league MVP who poured in 32.7 points per game, the most by a point guard in decades, actually. He's all about slithering in the paint, drawing fouls, and hitting tough shots at every single level of the game. Reese, on the other hand, is the ultimate facilitator, leading the NBA in assists last year with 10.9 assists per game and nearly doing it again this season. He's a pass first wizard who can burn you out with timely scoring bursts. And if he's getting the rebound, best believe he's pushing it out. Saw that a lot in the last series and also against the Cavs as well, who I don't think a lot of people had to be beating them. And speaking about his pass first wizardry, he's a pass first wizard who can also burn you with timely scoring bursts. He's a pass first wizard who can also burn you with timely scoring bursts. He just averaged 20 plus points and 10 plus assists in the Eastern Conference Finals. This matchup will be fascinating, guys. Can Halliburton's playmaking dissect OKC's sturdy defense? Can SGA continue to get onto his spots against the Pacers? Notably, OKC has defended Halliburton extremely well in the past meetings. In 4 games versus the Thunder over the last 2 seasons, Reese has averaged just 12 points on only 10 shot attempts per game, which is his lowest output against any team per ESPN. Largely because OKC throws a lot of length at him. Tough defenders like Lou Dort, Casey Wallace, Alex Caruso off the bench. Reese would need to be more aggressive than usual and not just slip into passivity if OKC's coverage frustrates him. Meanwhile, SGA will be challenged by Indiana's defense led by Miles Turner patrolling the paint. I'm very happy for Miles. This is the furthest he's ever gotten in his NBA career. He's been grinding it out year and year again. And there was times that I'm sure he thought about leaving that place, but he stayed and they put some good building blocks around him, and I'm happy for him. As far as this series, the winner of this point guard battle, scorer versus passer, could ultimately decide who wins the series, guys. All right, next point, pace and tempo. Fastest NBA in years? I don't know. Let's see. So both these teams love to get out on the run. It's a bit unusual in the finals, honestly, where it's all X's and O's and it's all half court basketball. But typically, pace slows down with high stakes. Honestly, the playoffs, a lot of things usually slow down, but not for these specific teams. For context, the recent finals have averaged 93 to 97 possessions per game per ESPN. But OKC and Indiana were second and third in pace this season. The Thunder averaged 100.6 possessions per game, and Indiana at 98.4. Neither team has shown an inclination to slow it down so far. So we might be getting a up and down game, high possession series, more like a 2017 style tempo. The team that can better dictate the pace will have the edge ultimately in the end, I think. If you see the scores in the ones, that likely favors Indiana, who thrive in shootouts. Those guys, you don't want to get in a shootout match with those guys at all. They got nice shooters coming off the bench and in their starting lineup as well. If games grind down to the hundreds, that probably means OKC is imposing a bit of more defensive control and they're getting lockdown defense and they're getting stops. Keep an eye out on transition opportunities. Both squads will push off turnovers and long rebounds. Will look to leak out quick. Conditioning could become a factor if this turns into a track meet every single night. Which team is going to be the one that's better fit? I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's talk about bench production and depth. It's a cliche, but role players will swing this series. Both teams boast relatively deep rotations. The Pacers have gotten huge lifts at times from guys like Benedict Mathurin, especially last game, a dynamic young scorer likely coming off the bench now or is coming off the bench. TJ McConnell, steady hand, Obi Toppin. I mean, those guys have a good bench, and a lot of these players don't play over to 35 minutes. Rick Carlisle might shorten his rotation going into this finals, but they have guys that can play off the bench. For the Thunder, they can counter that with their own X factors. Isaiah Joe can come in and hit 3, 4 triples in the flash. Kendrick Williams, if available. Alex Caruso provides that veteran savvy and defense. and young guys like Jalen Williams can really eat up valuable minutes. On paper, OKC Thunder, they might have a bit of more experience, especially having Caruso being a former champion with the Lakers in 2020 and a stabilizer for them. Whereas Indiana's bench leans a little bit younger, right? So watch out for the second unit and which one can swing a game with a big run. In a couple of those Knicks and Pacers games, Indiana's bench unit stretched leads while the Knicks subs struggled, and that was a big contributing factor in that series. And that can be a series defining factor as well. How will each coach stagger their stars' minutes? Will Carlisle try to keep Halliburton on the floor whenever SGA rests to maximize those minutes, and vice versa for Mark with the OKC Thunder? With SGA, the chess match of rotations is on. Same 3-point shooter. Don't leave him open. And Turner is stronger and more experienced, Holmgren more mobile around the edges. I'm really happy for Miles. I think I talked about that earlier. I think he went out and hugged every single staff member after that game en route to the finals. Indiana's defense has been just okay in these playoffs. They've outscored people more than they shut them down against OKC. They might not be able to outscore them in 4 times out of 7, especially if their shooting regresses to no more levels. All that said, I don't expect a blowout series by any. Pacers absolutely have a formula to win this. Rain threes, they've been hitting at a historic clip and turn it into a track meet every single night. If Tyrese can solve the Thunder's defensive scheme and start racking up 15 assists per night, and if the Pacers continue this high powered offense run that they've had so far, they could hoist the trophy. Remember, the Pacers were a 50-1 long shot to win the East at the start of the season per ESPN. They've been underdogs, and they're keeping that mentality going into the finals as well, which I'm pretty sure they're not the favorites to win. I don't know what the spread is. Not a betting person, but I'm pretty sure the Pacers are underdogs all along, and they seem to thrive off that energy. They've embraced the why not us mentality. It wouldn't shock me if they ride that all the way. But if we're talking probabilities, the Thunder are just a more complete team right now. Thunder in 6 is the call. SGA claiming the finals MVP. X factors. Let's talk about X factors real quick here. So Pacers X factors. Miles Turner. Miles Turner is Indiana's anchor inside. If he can really patrol the paint effectively, blocking or altering shots by the Thunder's guards, this will prove to be a big thing for them. The Pacers can negate a lot of OKC's half-court defense if they do that. Miles Turner led the league in blocks before, and he'll need to be sharp, iron sharp, in this particular series in the finals. And he must avoid being in foul trouble, which you saw him get into that last game and saw Thomas Bryant come off the bench and be a spark off the bench, really helping his team in areas of where Turner was on the bench. In this playoffs, we've seen moments where Indiana's defense really falls apart whenever Turner is on the bench on the defensive side. Obviously, you have Thomas Bryant who can be there to facilitate that if that does happen, but you need a guy like Miles Turner out there. If SGA can bait Turner into cheap fouls early on in games, it could really spell trouble for Indy, honestly. Conversely, if Turner holds the fort down low and perhaps drags Holmgren out to the perimeter by hitting a couple of threes, going inside and outside, his impact could be huge in this series. A locked-in Turner could swing a game or two in Indiana's favor. OKC's X factor, bench shooting. Isaiah Joe and company. We know the usual suspects for OKC, but watch for their bench shooters in this series. The Pacers will likely throw a lot of attention at SGA and making other players beat them. Isaiah Joe is a name to remember. He's a knockdown 3-point shooter who's had some big games in his past whenever teams load up on SGA. If Joe or somebody like Casey Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, if guys like that hit their threes, Indiana could be in for some trouble. OKC's offense is at its best when the floor is spaced out for SGA drives. So if those guys come off their bench and hit their open looks, Indiana will have a hard time defending them. On the flip side now, if those shots are not going in, Pacers will pack the paint and could stifle the Thunder. It's a subtle X factor, to be honest, but keep an eye out for the Thunder's role players. In summary, we have a classic offense versus defense, upstart versus upstart showdown on our hands. It's not the finals that everybody had expected, and there's some people are not very happy about it. But it is what it is. No super teams here, no LeBron, no Steph in years. And it might be all more exciting because of that. These teams are hungry, they're fun, and they play the right way, which is team basketball at the end of the day. I can't wait to see who all comes out on top. My pick is OKC in 6. But as this postseason has shown us, anything is possible. Word to KG himself. Don't like the Celtics, but I had to say that. Grab your popcorn for Thursday night. It's looking like a exciting series. Lastly, I wanted to speak about the inside crew. Lastly, before we wrap up this episode here, I wanted to before we wrap up this episode, I want to take a moment for a special shout out to the TNT crew of Inside the NBA. They're not done yet because they're going to ESPN. Who knows how that will go? But we'll see how things go, especially after listening to Rasulo and Bill Simmons about maybe what that might do to the TNT crew. Maybe give them short minutes because we're so used to them getting the extended minutes after a commercial break and so forth. But their final broadcast of the season was on the 31st, which is Saturday after the conference finals concluded. And as always, Ernie, Kenny, Charles, and Shaq delivered pure entertainment and insight all playoffs long, night after night. That crew not only makes us laugh with their antics and chemistry, but also teaches us a lot about the game with their candid analysis. They're truly the best studio show in sports, and their presence post game is a comforting nightcap for NBA fans, including myself, which I try to watch as much as I can before going to sleep. I don't know how those guys do it, especially being their age, being up at midnight and shit, still recording. But it is what it is. You got to get that check. We saw moments this postseason like Chuck grilling Cat about his fouls in classic Chuck fashion and Shaq nearly falling out of his chair laughing. These guys are an institution in itself. They've been doing it for over 2 decades now, and they haven't lost a single step. So a huge thank you to the Inside the NBA crew for another fantastic year. They made the long nights of basketball even more enjoyable with their banter and knowledge. We'll miss them during the finals since the finals move over to ESPN/ABC, but we look forward to seeing them again next season. Thank you to Ernie, Kenny, Charles, and Shaq for always keeping it real and keeping us entertained. That does it for episode 35. Word to Kevin Durant of Shot Clock Scribbles. We've wrapped up the conference finals and set the stage for what should be an amazing NBA finals. Thank you for listening. If you're still doing that at the end of this show and tuning in to my deep dives, I appreciate every single one of you listening until the very end. My voice is going out, as you can tell. I hope you guys enjoy the finals. Be sure to check back in for my next episode where I'll break down all the action from the Thunder and Pacers series. If you haven't already, follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. On YouTube, you can find me at TENDAI530 and the other platform, Shot Clock Scribbles Podcasts, where I post episode clips, extra analysis, banter, and a lot more. Keep the conversations live out there. I love interacting with every single one of you guys. Enjoy the games, and I'll catch you on the next one. That is it for me. Ciao.